What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of preventative maintenance and taking off my intake to replace some sensors and gaskets. What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be changing my cam position sensor, oil pressure sensor, as well as my intake gaskets. This is just preventative maintenance. You do have to remove the intake to get to them. If you don't, you would have to drill a hole in this little firewall plastic piece. I don't want to do that. I don't want any water leaking through here. So here we go. There's a bunch of little stuff you got to take off to get this intake off, but of course you want to start off with the little decorative covers on your engine. On here on the passenger side, I took that off and then put back on the oil fill cap to make sure nothing fell down into the motor. First off, took this little breather hose off, or crankcase, whatever you want to call it. I put some clamps on it because I had to use some other kind of hose, so ignore that. Next up, there is a plug on the side here for the throttle position sensor. Got that out. And then of course the air intake bridge, you want to get that off of the throttle body. After that, I took off the injector plugs. I had to be real careful on these because mine are kind of brittle. There's a little metal tab that you push in on and then you lift up on that plug. I couldn't get some of them off, so I did get like a set of needle nose pliers and gently grab them and wiggle them off. There is a little blue gasket type thing in there that you want to make sure you keep and don't let fall anywhere. Back to the front, I forgot there's a little coolant line that goes to the throttle body. It has a little clamp on it. You just get the needle nose pliers and pull that off. Of course it's going to leak. There's another one on the other side too, I believe. All right, over here on the other side, that's that one. It doesn't go to the intake. It goes to I believe it's like a little crossover right before the valley pan. I'm gonna get this plug off right here. I think that's for the throttle. It has a little green tab that goes in there to lock it. Mine broke, so I don't have that. Got a pair of needle nose pliers for the little clamp on that coolant hose under there. All right, the fuel rails, driver's side, there's a cap that goes on the front. You take it off and there's a little straighter valve in there. You want to make sure you get like a towel or something and push that in, and it's going to relieve the pressure. But if you don't put a towel, you see I just sprayed gas everywhere. You just got to pressure once and it relieves that. And then you get to go to this little silver line right here. There's a little metal piece that is a little safety thing. You just release that like that, take it out, and then you're gonna have to get one of these little fuel line removal clip thingy things. So there's 4 tabs in this little line. You're not gonna get them all on one shot unless you're lucky. I had to take the little tool out and push it back in a different way. Next up, these little evap lines here on the driver's side of the intake, right behind the throttle body. I took that off, and then I had unplugged the plug that was going into it, thinking I was gonna need to do that, but all I had to do really was just unclip the whole canister or line from that little clip right there that slides on. So I just got this little screwdriver and pressed it in. The wire harness is held on by these little gray clips. I got a little trim removal tool and popped them out. Some of them were already broke off because the little tape isn't connected to it. But yeah, you're not going to be able to remove the intake with these connected to the wire harness. Wire harness is staying in the car, of course. On the 2004 LS1, the PCV valve is in the valley cover, So this little hose right here goes to that. Mine is so hard I can't even get it off. Had to get a new one. After that, pretty much ready to get the intake off. There's 10 8mm bolts. 2 of them are kind of hard to get to because they're under the firewall plastic. So the one on the passenger side is pretty easy to get to. That far back rear one, just use a short socket. But the one on the driver's side is the problematic one. Both of them are gonna have to stay in until you're ready to get the intake out. On the driver's side, mine was stripped and wrenches wouldn't reach. Best thing I could do was this little mini ratchet, but guess what? Mini ratchet broke. So the little ratchet part was in there, and I got some pliers and I was able to turn that and get it out. So yeah, I would just suggest buying like a little mini ratchet to get in there. Problem is with the other ones is that they're just too fat to fit to even turn. Pretty much got everything off, like I said earlier, except for this little hose, so I can't even move the intake. I had to cut that thing, and that's how I got it off. Before I got the whole intake off, I went and got my air compressor and sprayed any loose little dust out and away to make sure it didn't fall down in, into my engine. Also over here on the driver's side, there is a hose that comes from the back of the intake to the booster. So I just took it out the booster. There's also a plug that goes into the map sensor, which is behind the intake. Unplug that before you get it off too far. And here on the driver's side, there's like a little metal piece that has a plug attached to it. It just snaps right off. So like I said, the 2 back bolts, you have to get the intake at least out from under that plastic to get those bolts out. Once you get the bolt out, that little metal piece will be able to unhook, and you'll have this. That's the map sensor. There is a few air lines back here that you want to make sure you plug back in when you're getting that back in, because it runs your HVAC. And all right, here we go. These are my intake gaskets. As you can see, they were doing absolutely nothing. They were flattened, they were ironed flat. There's a little tab right here in the corner. You don't have to start picking it out right there, but that's where I got it from, and I got those out. Also, you want to make sure you don't drop anything down in your intake. That little circle thing down there towards the bottom is your injector, of course. There is oil in your intake because I'm not running a catch can. So yeah, here's the new gasket. You know which way to put them in by that little corner piece right there. It inserts right like this. Just press it in and you're good to go. Move on to the next one. There are 2 foam pads on the intake, one in the front, one in the rear. Here's the old one, had already replaced the front one. The new ones do come in the kit that I got. It has a little white sticky thing. You just peel that off, get the new one, and place it right back on there like so. Mine had worn out, and plus the gaskets being worn out, the intake had etched itself into my cylinder heads. So yeah, that sucks, but here we go. One thing you want to make sure of is to make sure those little circles, the injectors, don't have anything fall on them or anything, so that they're not blocked when you put this intake back on. But here's the part number, and here's finished product. I'm not gonna put it back on yet, of course. Here is the new oil pressure sensor. I have an oil pressure switch socket to remove it. I know a regular socket would probably work, but I'm gonna be using this. There is a plug, of course, on it. Take the plug off. Using a flashlight to show you guys. So once you get the old one out, that hole is open. Be careful, make sure you don't drop anything down in there. Here's the new one. Of course, always compare your parts to each other, make sure they're the same exact thing. This one does come with looks like some thread sealant on the threads. There's a washer that's already on there. Just go ahead and thread it back in by hand. It's going to be a little bit tough because of the thread sealant, but as long as you're not stripping anything, you should be good. And then next up, the camshaft position sensor. It's held in by a 10mm, I believe. There is a plug, so you want to unplug that and then unscrew the screw, and then it pops right out. I did have an issue with this sensor because I got a Delphi as a replacement. I went with the Delphi because it was AutoZone, had Delphi, and had a lifetime warranty on it. But of course, as always with AutoZone and lifetime warranties, it's too good to be true. So as soon as I started the car up, drove around the corner, that sensor went out. I went on summitracing.com and looked at the review, and same thing happened to other people. So I high key recommend getting an AC Delco camshaft position sensor for your LS motor, just to make sure you don't have that headache of having to take the intake off again. There was nothing wrong with either sensor for me. I just had to take it all apart and put back on the stock camshaft position sensor. Here's the old one compared to the new one. As I said before, there was no problem with mine. I was just in there, so I was going to replace it. The main issue that happens with these is that they start to leak, and it leaks down onto your clutch. That's because of the little O-ring seal. So all I did was replace the O-ring seal on my stock one and just put it right back in. It started throwing 2 or 3 codes. It comes in this package that says no return if open. I sure did return it and got my money back. That was $75. So, yep. As always, you want to clean like any mating surface, of course, to make sure that everything seals. With these position sensors, when you put it in, it's going to pop back in there because of that little O-ring gasket, like so. And then you just screw it back in. Make sure you plug that back in. That's it so far. The valley cover gasket, if you want to, this is a really good time to replace it, especially if you have the 04. You can replace the whole cover. There's a hose, that the EGR hose that goes onto the back of the head. This is a good time to remove that as well, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure out a way to get to a socket back there or a wrench, so oh well. Only gasket I haven't replaced on this motor so far is the head gasket, so I'll probably be doing that when I do lifters eventually and taking these heads off. But for now, that's it. Put the intake back on. Of course, you want to put those 2 bolts in there. You want to make sure you get this thing in there, as well as plugging the map sensor back in and the air hose before you get this thing all the way settled. You want to torque it back down. There's 2 passes. First pass, I believe, is 44 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. There is a torque sequence. Here it is. I'm sorry if you couldn't see that. Just pause that real quick. And then the second pass is going to be 89 inch-pounds. As far as the 2 back ones, I had to guess on that. When you're plugging your injectors back in, you want to make sure that little metal tab pops back out. I threw a code because one of them did not pop back out, so it wasn't plugged all the way in. From here on out, it's just pretty much crossing your T's, dotting your I's, making sure you got everything plugged back in. Everything's screwed on tight. The fuel line rail, the little secure, this just snaps right back in, both of those. Everything's plugged in, injectors. Make sure The booster is plugged back in. Here's the new PCV hose. I got it from Dorman overnight real quick from Amazon. In order to install it, I just put a little bit of oil in it and then slid it on. You can see the difference between the two. That one was just solid rock. All right, everything's done. Double checked every connection, put the decorative cover back on. Since I released the fuel pressure, before I turned the car back on, I primed the fuel pump like 3 times by turning the car to the on position, then back off, and then I started the car. Oil pressure is good. No issues, except for when I started driving the car and the cam position sensor went out. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Of course, see you guys on the next one.